A 7-foot tall man covered in brown fur with a 15-foot wingspan, huge wings, flew around the heads of my best friend and I. Flew around us 3 times and then flew away. This happened when I was about 11 years old, and we've come to call him Birdman. I want to welcome you today to Paranormal Christian. On the last episode, if you didn't get to catch it, the last one is simply titled, I Saw an Angel in My Bedroom, and you're going to want to get some backstory on that. Today, I don't want to tell you about an angel. I want to tell you about Birdman, but I have to explain something. We've been touching on the fact that there's a lot of talk. The number one trend in our country right now is on alien life, extraterrestrials, UFOs, and UAPs, and the fact that the government is declassifying the UFO files. And I had a question, a thought, wondering if some people have had encounters with spiritual beings and have misidentified it as an alien encounter. And so we're going to give this one a whirl today. Are you ready? Let's tell stories. When I was about 11 years old, my best friend was our pastor's son. He was almost 3 years older than me. He was actually already a freshman in high school. I wasn't out of middle school yet. And so the high school was down the street from my home. And when he would get out of school every day from the high school, he would walk to my house and he would sit on the porch and wait until I got home. And so my sister would pick me up from the middle school. So we would go to my house and my best friend would be there waiting, and we had some woods near my house, not like dense forest, but a few hundred acres of scattered woods. And we had an army backpack. We would put some snacks in there and we would just take off hiking. This is what we like to do. So almost every day we would be hiking through these woods. One of our favorite things to do is that we built a little fire pit out of some rocks, and we would take some tin cans and we would take some raw hamburger and we would put the hamburger in the can, cook it on the fire, eat it with a fork. We thought it was great. We were living the life. There was a little creek that ran by and we would boil some water and the whole bit. But this is what I have to tell you. As we would make our way through the woods every day, as we were following the little trail that we had blazed, you would see all kinds of woodland creatures. You would see squirrels, you would see rabbits, and there would be birds. Obviously lots of birds. Maybe once in a while we would see a deer, probably not too often. But one of the things that we noticed is that the birds, they may be sitting on a low branch, maybe eye level with us, but we could never get near the bird. As we would walk through the woods, the birds would see us coming, and of course they would do as birds do, and they would fly away. At some point, while we had been going out to these woods every day, we found a stick. It was a very unique looking stick. It was shaped like a club, like you think of a caveman having a club. It was thick at the top, narrow at the bottom, much fatter than a baseball bat. And hindsight, truthfully, what it was the base of a small tree, the trunk of a small tree that had rotted off at the ground. And so that thick part that had rotted off, and then the thinner part here, you turn it over and you have a club, and it's kind of jagged on the top. It was very gray, but we thought that was neat. We thought that was a neat, club stick to carry around. And so we would carry that thing around. Well, something strange happened. Whenever we would carry that stick with us, we noticed something. The birds did not fly away as we got close to them. The birds would stay right there. We would be so close to these birds. I mean, they didn't allow us to, reach out and touch them, but much closer than they had ever been. And our thought was maybe the birds have been getting used to us. Maybe they're becoming more accustomed to us and we just hadn't noticed until we forgot the stick. And when we forgot the stick, the birds would fly away. We started to notice the pattern. If we had the stick with us, the birds stayed. If we did not have the stick, the birds flew away. We didn't know if there was anything to it, if it was just coincidence. We have no idea. It probably was, to be quite honest. We started calling it the bird stick. That's how we referred to it. Well, this went on for quite some time. Now, on Wednesday nights at our home church, there was a boys group. And in the Baptist church that we went to, the boys group is called Royal Ambassadors. Some of you may be familiar. My dad was the director for Royal Ambassadors. He was also the van driver. And so he would go and pick up all the boys. We would have our meeting, and then he would drop them off back at home. Now, this was a Wednesday night, and I think we had already moved into summer break. I think that we were past school at this point. And the reason I think that is because my best friend was going to spend the night at my house. And so on this Wednesday night, we told my father, when our boys group was over, I point this way because my home church is just a few feet that way. And I told my dad, I said, hey, go ahead and drop the boys off. We're going to walk to the pastor's house. We're going to walk up to the parsonage, and we're going to pack an overnight bag. Robert's going to pack an overnight bag because he's spending the night at our house. And I told my dad, I said, when you get done dropping all the boys off, just stop in front of the pastor's house. We will be on the porch waiting for you, and we'll get in to catch a ride home. So Robert and I are on the porch of his house. The sun had not completely set yet, so it was not, super dark by any stretch, but it was not super bright either. There was just, it was at sunset. So you could see the sky pretty well. Shaded areas were getting a little bit darker. We're sitting on the porch. Actually, we're laid back on the porch like this. We had made a pillow out of his army duffel bag, and we were both, it was a long bag, and we're both laid back like this, just waiting on our ride. It was a very, very still evening. And while we're laying there, while we're talking, all of a sudden, there was a gust of wind that came straight down on us, and then it was gone. And then there was another gust of wind. And then another gust of wind. These gusts of wind were coming straight down, one after the other. We looked up. Now, I can't tell you for sure what this was, but I'm just going to tell you in 11-year-old, 12-year-old terms exactly what I saw. And here's what I saw. There was a man with wings. A man completely covered head to toe in brown fur, and he had wings. If the man was 6 to 7 foot tall, hard to judge with the distance up, I would have to think that he was about 40 or 50 foot above our heads, 40 or 50 foot off of the ground. If that is the case, he was probably 7 foot tall. If he was 7 foot tall, the wings would then have spanned about 14 foot, probably. Brown wings with some kind of white toward the tips of the wings. And this thing was flying. This man, this creature, this humanoid flying Birdman thing. And he flew around 1, 2, 3 tight circles, and then flew away until he was out of sight. Robert and I were speechless. We could not say a word. We laid there, still, motionless, watching and waiting. After a moment, this thing came back into view, and he flew another 2 or 3 circles around and flew away again. We still had not spoken a word. We were in complete shock, in complete awe, and we just laid there, now waiting, wondering if it would come back again. It did not. It never returned. We laid there for quite some time before we said a word, and then kind of turned to look at each other to begin to converse about what we saw, to discuss what we saw, what it could have been. This thing looked exactly as I have described it to you. Can I say what it was? I can't. But I can tell you that's exactly what it looked like. It was not gliding. It was flying. So in coming days, I didn't broadcast it, but I told a few people in my family. I actually told my next door neighbor. And my next door neighbor, I just thought he was an old man. Looking back, he may not have been as old as I thought he was. He was retired. He was up in years. Honestly, at that point, he was probably in his upper 70s. And he had lived in the area for his entire life. And I told him about this. He did not call me crazy, which I appreciated. And honestly, I didn't think that he would. I was close with my neighbors. It used to be that way growing up. And he said, DJ, he said, when we were kids, he said there was a giant type of bird that lived here in our area, a condor. Many people know what a condor is. I had no idea there were condors anywhere near our area, but that's what he said. He said, I can't help but think that that was a condor that you saw. I'm thinking, well, if a condor has legs like a human and he's 7 foot tall, covered in brown fur, and has a man's head, then, but that's what he thought it was. My cousin had actually told the gentleman that was the superintendent of schools at the time, which was the cousin of my next door neighbor, oddly enough. And I was a little embarrassed when I found out my cousin had told our superintendent this story. But the superintendent had the same thought. He had the same thought. So he didn't throw me out as crazy. What did I see? There are people that believe in something called a Mothman. We hear about Bigfoot. We hear about Mothman. In some areas, we hear about Pigman. I'll have to tell you a Pigman story sometime from a neighboring county of some people that I don't know what they saw, but they believe what they saw, and it's called Pigman. Another one we have in our area, stories from several decades ago about one called Catman. And a couple of members of my family have stories about Catman. I would love to tell those stories. But I've had several people say to me that were believers in Mothman, and they say, I bet you saw Mothman, whatever Mothman actually is. When I look at the description of Mothman, it doesn't look the same as what I saw. What did I see? I have no idea. Was it an angelic being? When we read the Bible about what different types of angels look like, and I shared some of this in my video about I saw an angel in my bedroom, it makes me wonder what I saw. Did I totally misidentify what I saw? Some people would suggest that maybe I saw an extraterrestrial being. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea what I saw. I'm not trying to make a claim on what it is, and people have their own ideas. You may not believe me at all, and that's perfectly okay with me. It makes a great story anyhow. But I am curious about your thoughts. I know that people out there have had experiences where they have witnessed something that they can't explain. And here at Paranormal Christian, I don't just want to share my stories. I want to share your stories. I'm looking for extraordinary experiences that have happened to ordinary, everyday people. You can comment your stories. I would also appreciate it very much if you would subscribe to us right now on whatever social media platform that you're watching. You can also visit paranormalchristian.com. There is a contact form there and our email address, and you can send us information that way. You can also grab some great merch. You can grab a hoodie or a trucker cap, a coffee mug, some stickers. And so would you follow us? Would you share us with all of your friends? And would you send us your stories and keep them PC? We will see you next time on Paranormal Christian.